Okay, it's July 10th, 4 o'clock, and I call this meeting to order. First item on the list is consent agenda. I haven't gotten any questions. Have you, Scott?
No questions, no feedback.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Three.
3-1. The second item on the agenda, or third item on the agenda, cybersecurity. I think Scott has a short video for us.
So we'll go ahead and play that now. Thank you guys for observing, and I'll just let the video go. Thank you guys for participating in monthly cyber training. Recently, the insurance company, as well as Federated and the financial auditor, have asked about board's efforts on this. So it is modeling by example. We greatly appreciate that and are pleased to follow your example on that. So with your permission, I'd be happy to start on agenda item number 4 if we're ready to proceed. Okay. So the next topic, Debt Mountain, how Tri-County got here and what this team is doing about it. I've labeled this roadmap to recovery. And to get started, I'd like to share a quote from one of our supervisors recently. He said it to me like this: "This is a way to show that being financially responsible isn't just appreciated, it's working, and now we have results to show." I appreciate that, and his perspective came after discussing the historic 7-year spending spree. As epic as that was, this team's resolve to fix it is even stronger. Over the past 15 months, I've seen this team go from surprised at the learning where we're starting from to excited about how much progress can we make, how quickly can we make it. This team has the competitive nature to want to solve the problem, to see themselves as part of the solution, and that is engaging and exciting to us. So tonight, short of walking on water, this team has performed some semi-miracle things I want to describe. They deserve to be understood, and I'm happy to be able to share their news for them. All this has previously been shared in current conversations as well as previous president's reports over the past year of membership. So tonight, there's not going to be a lot of new information, but I'll put together a context in one conversation with what we think the future looks like as we continue to chip away with that. Speaking of current conversations, that is one of the methods by which we've communicated a lot of information in the past year. Our archived editions are available on the website. These are going to about 90% of membership, so it's one of the effective tools we have to communicate. It's not the only one, but it is a way to engage. And if anybody is not getting that and they wish to do so, we're happy to engage with them in that manner. So one of the recent current conversations was a special edition. It was our annual report. In that annual report, we outlined some highlights in the previous years, and tonight, these 5 points to get started with could also be a preview for some of the success on the same topics for next year. In our first annual report together, it was important to note that this team accomplished these things. The $100 million loan that was scheduled for 2024, we didn't utilize. We did not take that additional $100 million of debt. Additionally, we closed another $343 million loan facility. It had never been drawn on, but we closed that loan so it wouldn't even be an option. It had never been drawn on. Third, there was a $45 million loan embedded in the 2025 budget that we didn't execute and that we're not going to execute. We can see enough now, light towards the end of the year, we're not going to fund that loan. Those 3 loans not being funded are significant given the context here. When you combine all those things and the things we're going to talk about in the next few minutes, ending a fiscal year with less debt than the year began is an incredible accomplishment, particularly considering 2 or 3 factors. Factor number 1, there were a lot of things that we honored, even though it wasn't the way we would have designed it, like the aid to construction. Stopping that, and we appreciate your leadership on that. Stopping that mid-year helped the cooperative have a more viable financial future. Things like that really hurt the first 2/3, 3/4 of 2024. Secondly, a lot of the factors that we put in place, a lot of the projects and initiatives to save money are long-term investments. We'll talk about some specific examples. They're going to start saving in 2025, 2026 and beyond. Some of those, the bigger ones, haven't even kicked in yet. So when you consider those types of factors to already have made debt reduction, that's pretty good, not only to stop the momentum, but to start making progress in area one. That has been noticed. And finally, we'll talk about the introduction of paying the line of credit down. First time it's been done in the 5-year history of the credit line. It had been used every month or every other month for 5 years. Not only did this team stop borrowing on the line of credit on a monthly basis, this team's already started to pay it down. Now, we didn't pay down the debt as much as we would like in the first year. We haven't paid down the line of credit as much as we would like, but just to stop the momentum would have been a good accomplishment in the first year. That would have been a base hit. But we're already on the second base of actually making momentum and paying those down. Those types of results and others like them have been more than enough to satisfy 2 lenders that have been watching this very closely, that lend to hundreds of electric cooperatives. They know what they're looking for, they know what they're doing, they're in the business of loaning money for a reason, for a profit, and they are pleased with our progress. These type of results are more than enough to satisfy a debt rating agency of the progress we're making and a stable outlook. They're very satisfied and encouraging that. These results are more than enough to satisfy a new financial auditor that audits lots of electric cooperatives and utilities. Those are 5 organizations that have a lot of expertise, that do a lot of things in this business, and they are very proud of the progress we're making. So I do want to pass that along. You don't have to take my word for it. They're happy to speak to that. You don't have to take their word for it. Because like Joe said, we're going to show you the results for yourself. So with that in mind, I want to begin this discussion from a human perspective. In April of last year, it took about 3 weeks to get the financials, to get the budget, to get all the information we needed to get. But when we did, we began to really have some strong emotions about it, looking at it, thinking, okay, what do we do with this? How do we go? And as a board, we sat down, we talked with you. We got some good outlook. We got some good encouragement. We ran to the problem, not away from it. We had candid conversations. We talked then about it took 7 years to make that problem. It's going to take a while to make it go away, but we've already started. And I'm encouraged what we're going to talk about for the majority of this discussion. The progress we've made is significant. After that board meeting in April 29th of last year, we had an all-employee meeting. This is where I want to kind of camp out just for a second. A lot of employees had ideas of the amount of debt we had bits and pieces, but kind of put it all together was news to a lot of them. And as long as I have a career, it will be difficult to ever forget the emotion on their faces. You look at it and you see surprise, frustration, outrage, lots of different emotions that it's understandable that they may have at first glance. I get that. And so we want to kind of meet them where they are to begin the journey. But we did. We met them where they were. We had candid conversations as an overall cooperative. We had smaller discussions break out at every office. And we talked about it in realistic, simple terms. So even from that moment, from a difficult conversation, difficult at best, we began with the idea of a mission statement. It wasn't some philosophical thing. That's the reality of strategic decisions. Safe and reliable power at the lowest possible cost. We realized if we do that, if we adhere to the 2 goals, improving financial health of the cooperative, enhancing member service simultaneously, if we do that, then it takes care of the members. If we do that, then it takes care of us. So I understand where they were coming from. I also had concerns. It's natural to understand that in those times, they would look at this and say, well, how does this impact me and my long-term viability? I get it, but I am pleased to share that a lot of people took this as a challenge of what can we do? And from that time early last summer, it's really been encouraging to see how galvanizing this is for people to transition from what can I contribute, what can we do? So I won't go through all the types of questions they have, but I want to begin just acknowledging meeting people where they are. I think the leadership team we have now has 2 necessary components. I think of a leader, they've got to have some compassion and they've got to have some competitiveness. If you find a leader that doesn't have enough of both of those, it's not going to work out long term. What you're seeing now is traces of our competitive nature coming out because we want to solve it. We're disappointed we couldn't pay more down last year. I don't know what we could have done besides print more money. We paid some down the first year. And you would have thought you're going to a wake as a senior team. We're looking around the table going, well, we did pay down XYZ number. And it was like I had to encourage you. What did you expect in the first year? So that competitive nature is coming through in a helpful way. And you're going to see that in the coming years as we get more and more creative. So let's get back to the numbers in the context of how do we get here so we can talk about the road to recovery. As we talk about the total debt and the blue bars on the graph, I want to start with the orange bar to the far left. The orange bar to the far left is cash reserves, cash in the bank, money in the checking account, whatever you want to call it. It took many years to build that number up to the $54 to $55 million level that it was. That's a fair, healthy, reasonable amount of cash reserves. But you're going to see four strikes in this process. One, the cash reserves got burned very quickly. As the cash reserves got burned, the line of credit got leaned on. As the line of credit got leaned on, structured debt went up. The structured debt went up, the CRF got on. It cycled. So a couple of things on this graph I want to point out. Walking in the door last year on April 1st, it's right at 900 million. That was roughly 700 of long-term structured debt, roughly 200 of lines of credit. Like it or not, that's the starting spot. So the challenge for us is what can we do about it? And as I think about just the analogy of going to an amusement park, going through the gate, there's a map, there's a dot, it's red, and it says, you are here. Like it or not, that's where we were. We want to go somewhere different. We're doing things different to reflect that. We have a vision of paying this down over time in a way that's sustainable, that makes sense, that allows us to improve reliability and safety along the way and maintain our already competitive rates that we'll talk about in a minute. So, like it or not, that's the starting point. I'm extremely proud of the team from stopping the bleeding and paying it down in year one. And we'll talk about what year two and beyond looks like as we go through here, as we transition to the future. This team accomplished a lot just to stop that bleeding when many of their cost-saving efforts haven't kicked in, especially some of the big ones. So when we talk about debt, I want to be cautious in context. It's not all bad and it's not all good. And it never will be, and it's not that simple. Most things in life aren't, right? But so what with the debt for us is the interest expense. Now, this is an actualist graph, so 2025 looks low. That's only through a recent month to date. In the end of the year, we'll look a lot closer to last year's number as far as the scale of this graph goes. But the interest expense is the so what of debt as far as our concerns, because it holds the key to financial flexibility and improving reliability even faster. Obviously, the lenders want to return on your investment. They're entitled to interest expense. I get it. I would too if I were in their shoes. But for Tri-County, this amount of interest expense is a lot. In fact, this year it's close to our capital budget. So we talked about that's not sustainable. We've cut the capital budget this year to 65 million. It's really stressing the system. That's the why. And I think everybody's really got it. As we evaluate new decisions, whatever they may be, good ideas, medium ideas, great ideas, we come back to this. What's the value of that idea? There's a lot of good things we can do. We've got to be very selective and wait for our proverbial pitches and baseball and the right things to make sure it's really worth it. So when we talk about interest expense, I'll give you an example of how it could help us improve safety and reliability, enhance member service. We know the system needs more switches, fuses, and reclosers. Needs it years ago. Our team has been asking for it for years. Line soups are right. Our line crews are right. This will help sectionalize the system and make a long outage shorter, make a big outage smaller. That's what these things are designed to do. It also provides a bit of physical safety to some of our crews, to some of the public. It also cuts expenses and overtime finding and fixing outages. It does a lot of good things to hit safety, reliability, and reduce expenses. We're going to spend close to $20 million over the next 2.5 years putting those things in. You can kind of see, hey, if we reduce interest expense so much, what are the good things we could do with it? So those are some fun questions that we're wrestling with. Okay, well, how can we do this over time? I'd love to snap my fingers, put them all in today. But the reality is, if we don't go nuts hiring external contractors to put all in tomorrow, so we don't have the cash to do it all tomorrow, you can't get all the parts in tomorrow. They come in 20-week lead times in some cases or 20 and more. So that's an example of the type of thing we could do that supports the entire mission statement, just as we begin to chip away at the interest expense. So again, it's not that debt is bad when used responsibly. It's just we want to make sure we get a healthy amount for the membership. And in doing so, it will help the safety and reliability of the cooperative. So we'll talk more detail about the line of credit balances. Go back to fiscal year 18, where we had a cash reserve of 54 million. Once that got gone, the lines of credit shot up. You can see this, it's kind of zooming in on the total debt, smaller numbers obviously, but you see the pattern there. As the lines of credit balances shot up and cash reserves were gone, there was another factor going on in the background. The PCRF financially functioned as a means of cash for the cooperative. And as its balance approached 100 million, there's 3 strikes. When those things began to get fuller or very full, the long-term debt came in. There's the 4 strikes in that financial equation. I want to be very careful about talking about lines of credit and debt. Again, we're in a very capital-intensive industry. Many of the assets we buy have long lives of more than a decade. It would be irresponsible to pay cash for all of that. Utilities need a good debt equity mix, whether it's 30, 35, 40%. That can vary over time based on specifics and that utility and what they're facing and things of that nature. Debt in and of itself is not wrong, not bad. We just want to get ours down to a healthier level. And we're going to show you what we think we can do in the coming years to do that. So when we talk about debt, I'm going to compare it to a light post. It's used for illumination. It's good for illumination. But if we're using it structurally to lean on, that's when we kind of get off balance. And maybe that's where it had been, but we want to flip that around going forward. As we're talking about the line of credit, we'll get into a more detailed slide before we move forward from that. It's hard to stop that momentum. It's been leaned on every month or every other month for 5 years. To stop that line of credit balance, like this team has done, and only drawing it once, then to pay that back, and then to pay more down before the other savings initiatives really start to pay off. That shows you all this came internally. Furthermore, that's done before 1 penny of asset sales is received. There's not 1 penny of asset sales that have led to this turnaround. This is just internal teamwork. So let's dig deeper into the line of credit to illustrate. These are quarterly draws, and you add these up to get the previous graph. And you can see the historic pattern I talked about. When you think of a quarterly draw, don't think of 3 months or a fourth of a year. Think of 90 days. Think of 90-day periods drawing 15, 20, 25, 30, $40 million. It's a lot of debt in a short period of time, when ideally we'd like to be able to say, we're a seasonal business. We may draw a line in the summer, pay it back in the fall, and vice versa. And that is our long-term vision, and that is where we're headed. So we're going to be, again, converting more and more towards that. Something I'll point out here is in the past year, you can see we had to draw on late 24 to meet those obligations that were made for the 8-day construction subsidies I talked about, which thankfully we stopped, but there were still promises made that we had to honor. So outside of that, we are kind of going, man, what if we could have paid down even more? That's okay. That's the competitive spirit. We're going to need to maintain that going forward. But to not draw on the line of credit, that says a lot from the same team that saw a lot of these things go out the door. So I'm encouraged by their adaptability, their willingness to look at the situation. Hey, what do I need to be doing now? How can we look at this differently? And what is a solution and what is the problem? So I'm encouraged by their progress there. So how did we get here? All of these things have been in current conversations. I've just discussions about this. I'm not going to go very deep into these 6 things, but they compounded, or they will be compounding in the next 12 months. The idea of introducing a culture of budget accountability. Every department has a budget. They're accountable for it. There's checks and balances. They view it on a monthly basis. They talk to other departments about what's left of the year, how much they have to go, all these types of things. And they're thriving in it. Nobody wants to be in the department that doesn't meet their budget. There's a healthy camaraderie to climbing that hill together. So there's some good things going on there. There's some creative ideas that we'll talk about later, some small ideas that are growing. Look forward to highlighting some of those. I use the term we intervened on the 2024 budget, and thankfully, as I go back to the aid to construction, that was an intervention. That debt had been growing at 40 million a year for 6 years, for close to $250 million. Resetting that expectation, resetting the way we talk to new members and builders, resetting what that looks like going forward, and other things associated with it. Resetting our own expectations. We didn't have a $40 million number in any department, but even our own things, internal department needs and things of that nature, beginning to prioritize a lot of safety, reliability at the lowest possible cost. It really helped us determine needs from wants. It really forced us to ask ourselves a lot of hard questions, which led to those financial results. I call it the third one purchasing. There was a lot of purchasing savvy going on here. The one that we focused the most on publicly is changing wholesale suppliers for a lot of our outside materials. And that one will have a low seven-figure savings each and every year, starting later this year going forward. And we're happy for that once that kicks in and that inventory is turned over. But it wasn't just that one. That's the biggest form of capital. It's small things. It's a lot of small things from supplies, office supplies, electronically. It's a lot of small things that are making that difference now. When those other wholesale, when those other large scale projects kick in, that's great. But right now, these results are off of hundreds of small things, not one great big silver bullet. So I'm encouraged by the volume of contribution by a large number of teammates for things like that. We've talked in here about the wholesale power supply. If we just think back simplistically, Winter Storm Uri, it was about a week-long process and it produced $485 million of debt. As tragic as that is, the ERCOT wholesale real-time market is very volatile. And a bad afternoon or a bad day or a bad 2 days could have easily gone more than $40 million, which we didn't have left in the line of credit at the time. So getting something that fits our balance sheet for the next 5 years, it's important, but it's also strategic because it allows all these other actions to continue to accumulate and to accrue over time as we pay down the debt. That's extremely important because going right into the next time, fixing the first 3 of the 8 storm loans, now we save enough just on the interest to make principal payments on loan number 1. So now these things are starting to compound. And as tragic as that is for the state of Texas, the region, and everybody else associated with it, we now have a clear line of sight and we can pay it off. We can leave it for the next generation paid, not kicking the can down the road. That was important to our team. None of us like that a bad thing happened, but bad things happen in life. We wanted to find a solution that gave our members closure. They deserve that. And this is a way we can do that and allow them rather to have stability for the next few years like we've talked about. So that was a very important part of this process. And I'll close with this one because it's more visible to more members. We created solutions that help us sell unnecessary or underused assets. The first 2 words there take a lot more creativity than perhaps even I first understood. That's okay. We have a pretty resilient team. Moving 100 people, 120 people takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of steps going behind the scenes there, from facilities to information technology, real estate. There's a lot of things moving behind the scenes when we move something this big, but we understand why we're doing it. We're doing all these things, including eventually selling some assets because we want to pay down the line of credit. We want to pay down the line of credit because we want to reduce interest expense. We want to reduce interest expense because it'll help us deliver safe and reliable power at the lowest possible cost. So we may sound like a broken record at times, and that's a good thing. So as you take these 6 things, and there's many chapters beneath each one of these bullet points that we talked about in a lot of depth, and you can certainly go back in current conversations or previous monthly reports and look in more detail of those. If you take the big picture of that and play it forward, okay, what comes next? If you look at some assets that we currently have under contract, there's a significant amount, more than 50 million, that sometime later this month, all the way through the early part of next year, when that closes, that goes straight to the line of credit. Now, when I say that goes straight to the line of credit, I'll be very candid about this. Both lenders are at the closing table. Tri-County won't even take the money and put it in our account and send it to them. It's going straight to the lenders to make advantage of every single day of compound interest savings. We don't want it to be even the perception or the appearance that we're not doing everything we can to save every penny of interest. So we'll continue doing those things on other assets as well that are not critical. And again, it's not that we don't want these assets, we would like to have these assets, but further develop these assets. It's a matter of, at this point in time, what is mission critical? How does this relate to the line of credit on which they were purchased? So that's kind of the high level of how asset sales fit into that equation. But if you look at the order of the work the past year, if you look at the order of the effect of the results, asset sales is last. We haven't got a penny of that in yet, okay? So if you take all that, now let's roll it back into something like a balance sheet. Now let's talk about that long-term debt, line of credit, total debt, and the changes. We've already highlighted that going in 2024, we started roughly at 900 million, very close to April 1st. That was the start. Like it or not, here you go. If you don't like it, do something about it. In our first year, we got it down just over $1 million to 893. Okay, it's a pretty good start. We need more. If you take what I just showed you on the previous side of known contracted asset sale prices, you apply it to line of credit, you get this 2026 possibility. It's not a forecast. It's simply taking the previous slide, take that number, apply it to the line of credit as it will be paid, and this is what it does. Long-term debt goes from 684 and change to 667 at the end of the year. Line of credit goes from 2085 to about 132. Total debt, 893 to right at 800. That is meaningful progress in year two. That's not just progress, that's more than a base hit in year two. And again, the whole thing comes back to the basic question of why. What's the strategy? What's the mission? Why does it matter? It matters because just from this transaction alone, or these transactions alone, we can save $5.3 million a year in lower interest rates, lower interest expense. What's the big deal with that? I said per year, it compounds. That's 5.3 each and every year going forward, right? That means in 4 years, we could pay for the switches, fuses, reclosers, right? If then it goes back to liability, enhances member service, safer. It also cuts down on some cost. That's mission statement friendly. So that's what we're looking to do by cutting down on the line of credit or reducing the interest expense. That's where we'll go. By installing this culture of accountability, the teams embrace the challenge. I spent a lot of time in the first few months wondering what the reactions and responses would be. I'm extremely encouraged that the so what is this meaningful, that we have this level of engagement. I'm extremely encouraged with how we're doing this. I'll pause and miss something earlier that I think is worthy of note. We talked about how we're doing this. I've been remiss if I didn't stop because it's easy to talk about the headlines, asset sales, wholesale power supply, things like that. The things that have been the most to me are the small ideas that don't really make headlines. They may barely make the proceeds report. But the financial results we've got are an accumulation of hundreds of small amounts of savings. Small specific things like MSRs talking to members. If the conversation allows, they will ask the member about opting into paperless billing. They'll ask the member about the paper versus the electronic magazine, if the opportunity allows. It's small initiatives like that by so many that don't necessarily add up to a lot of dollars, but it's a lot of sweat equity. And they're doing it for a reason, and they understand the why. And that's encouraging because it's encouraging other departments of what can we do. We don't talk to members on the phone, but we fill in the blank. There's hundreds of those that just aren't worthy of that in and of themselves. The headline is that so many people are participating, being part of the solution. That should be encouraging to all of us, and I really am thankful for that. So as we land the plane on what does this mean, what does this look like for the coming years, we're certainly going to come out with a deep dive financial discussion later this year as we approach probably November, preparing for next year's budget, have a good 60-day cycle again of really diving deep into numbers and strategies and things of that nature. But I want to end with the goals in mind of improving the financial health of the cooperative and enhancing member service. Those are the guardrails to protect that mission statement. So if you take all the numbers we just showed you, and we just keep doing things like that, and nothing falls out of the sky to help or hurt us, if we just take what I've already shown you, and that comes to fruition, we've looked at the coming long-term debt maturities. What do we think we can do over the coming years? We've looked at with the wholesale power supply contract, being able to stabilize the PCRF for members, being able to stabilize the rider for members. So what will also continue to be stable? We think it's realistic that we could pay down $20 to $21 million a year in long-term debt. We also think it's reasonable that we could pay down 4 to 5 in the line of credit at the same time. We think it's reasonable to expect to hold me accountable to pay down $25 million a year going forward. We will come back with more detail as we get a little bit deeper into this later in the year. Consider this a mid-year preview of where we think we can go. As we look at the first year and say, that's good, but we want to do more. We're competitive. We know there's a lot of eyes on us. There's a lot of industry eyes on us. We are challenged, excited, and encouraged to say, hey, 25 million a year. You know, every 4 years, there's $100 million. It's easy to see a sustainable path forward. It's easy to see, hey, we keep doing things like we're doing. What we're doing now is not enough. We'll come up with other ideas. That would be enough. We'll do other things. That would be enough. We will continue doing this. This is a way of life. It's not a arrival. It's a process. As we look at that, I want to reflect back a little bit to look forward. I'm grateful for the board to delegate and cooperative to let us fix it. I appreciate that. I appreciate you allowing me to set up checks and balances of purchasing that are so strict and stringent in public that executives and management can't get involved in. That board members also oversee that in combination with your financial auditor, things of that nature. I'm really grateful for that. That helps make sure everything is where it needs to be. I appreciate the ability to let our team fix this. I'll go back to Joe's quote in the beginning. It's not just enough to appreciate what we're doing. It's working. And now they have financial results to prove it. And more coming. Thank you for letting us work on this. Thank you for letting us fix it. We'll find ways to do more. We're excited to share the $25 million a year reduction. That is a meaningful reduction. That's making sure we've stopped all the bleeding. And now the healing begins with cutting that debt down year after year. So that's where we're headed. Happy to take any questions you may have. Happy to move on to the next topic, whatever you prefer.
You want to provide an update on the rebate program that you talked about last month?
Yeah, I think we're up to about 95,000 was the last number I saw. So we've been able to reimburse membership for up to $95,000, mostly for HVAC maintenance, which good for the unit, good for the finances, helping them save bills, like energy bills. So very encouraged about that. Also a little bit nervous. We're halfway through the year. We're about a third of the way through the goal, give or take. So it's a little bit of a challenge to our team to, that's nice, and so you never get to be completely satisfied, obviously, with where you are. There's a big challenge there. I'm pleased for the first half of the year, but we got some work to do. Now, we did start January 1st, and I acknowledge that, but nobody cares about our excuses. So we've got a lot of work to do to get that 250 out, but I'm confident the team is going to continue to communicate that as loudly and often. If you happen to see repeat social media posts or current conversations articles, please bear with us. We want to make sure everybody gets the word. It's a great use of the state funds. If there's no further questions, I'll turn it back to you.
That concludes our open session portion of the meeting. Thank you for joining us this evening.